Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another how to play video, and today we are going to learn how to play Evil Corp. Now, as a reminder, as always with my how to play videos, there will not be any commentary on my thoughts of the game in general, but if you are interested in seeing that, you can go down to the description and you will find a link to my review there. This video is only focused on how to play the game, so after you watch this, you should be able to set up and jump right into playing the game. So first we'll talk about how to set up the game. Obviously I've already done a little bit of that here. You'll notice that all of these pieces here connect very much like a puzzle, and in the center you will place the hexagon card and money shoes. Then in the center of it you will take all of the billion-dollar bills and place it down in the middle like so. And then on either side you will place the shuffled world event deck on one side and the shuffled opportunity deck on the other side. The next thing that will happen is you'll determine your player order. How do you do that? However you would like. It very clearly states in the rules, they are not holding your hand. You are adults, you are all in this together, and you can figure it out however you would like. Then in player order, you're going to select your evil CEO, or perhaps just misunderstood depending on your perspective. And in this case, we will play with the technocrat, the visionary, and the savant, and we will take these other three here and we'll put them off to the side. Along with that, each player will collect a Evil Core Rules cheat sheet, which will be useful as you play through the game. There are 3 secret base headquarters pieces and all of their business counters, and they will take that over to their side of the board as well. And again, we have our red, our cyan, and I've already taken the blue. I would also like to take a moment to point out this game has been developed in a colorblind friendly way. On each player's CEO card, there's a symbol down at the bottom, and this correlates to symbols that are also found on a sticker pack that comes with the game. And you're able to take those stickers and place them on 2 sides of each of your business cubes in order to make sure that you're able to play the game in a perfectly colorblind friendly way. Next, you will decide, are you going to play with the CEO special ability cards? These are cards that you're able to use once per game, and they are specifically color-coded and given a colorblind friendly label at the top to each of the individual CEOs that you are playing. And again, these are able to be used 1 time per game. Though, for the setup of this game, we will set these off to the side, as this is technically an advanced rule. And the next thing you'll do is you'll take these rebranding and bankrupt tokens, and you will just set them off to the side should they be needed later in the game. The last 2 things you need to do is you'll set the world event die off to the side, and we'll see more about this later. And then each player will take $5 billion and 3 opportunity cards that will make up their starting hand. Then the next thing that you will do is you will determine which market is your home base. In general, it is whichever market is directly in front of you, but that is not required. You certainly can select markets from all around the board. In this case, however, we've determined that blue will be right here in Europe, and I've placed the foundation of my secret hideout there. We will assume that red is located here in Asia, and cyan is here in Australia. Then after you've placed the foundation of your base, you will then place a single cube, which represents one of your businesses, in 3 other cities in different markets around the board. So at the beginning of the game, our game may look like this. And with that, you are ready to begin your game of Evil Core. Now, before we can begin, there are a few more things that we need to understand. The first is the end game winning conditions. In order to win the game, you're going to need to unlock the 3 phases of your evil plan before you're able to enact your ultimate in-game evil scheme. And like any good evil genius, you have a 3-phase plan. And in order to enact the 3 phases, you're going to be finding them in the opportunity deck. And as you can see, they are color-coded. In this case, I have the 3 phases for the cyan player right here. As you can expect, you must start by playing phase 1, then phase 2, and then phase 3. Once you have played phase 3, you have the opportunity to proceed to your end-game plan, and assuming no one is able to stop you, you will then be the winner. However, we'll talk about how you play these cards in just a moment when we get into the phases of the game. It's also important to note that as you complete the various phases of your plan, you will slowly be building up your evil lair, as you can see right here. You start with the foundation, then when you complete phase 1, you get to add the next part of your lair. Then when you complete the second phase, you add the next piece, and then at last, when you complete the third phase, you get to add the capper onto your Fortress of Solitude. Each player's turn is broken down into 3 different stages. You have the collect stage, in which, as you can guess, you'll be collecting revenue from your businesses around the world, and you'll be collecting free opportunity cards. Next, you have the invest stage. It's during the invest stage that you're able to put down various phases, perform hostile takeovers, play nasty business or agent cards, and then buy more opportunity cards. And then the final stage of a player's turn is the world event stage, at which time you'll be drawing a world event card, finding out which market it's targeting through the world event die, and then perform whatever task the card itself tells you to perform. Now let's go through all those stages one by one. We'll start with the collect stage. Collection is very simple. All you have to do is calculate how much money your businesses are bringing in from around the world. You get 2 billion for your secret lair, and then 1 billion for each of your other businesses you have around the world. However, should you happen to have a business in all 3 cities in a market, you will have a monopoly in your particular industry, at which time your revenue for that market is doubled, and you will be immune from any world events that happen to get played in that market as well. However, it's also very important to note that before you are able to collect your money, you must announce to the table how much money you are bringing in. Then once you've done that, you are able to collect your money from the center of the board. Now, I mentioned that you have to announce how much money it is that you're bringing in, and that is because it is very possible in this game that you will make a, quote, mistake. And just in case a mistake ever happens, any other player around the table can always call for an audit. However, it is up to the player calling for the audit to prove that you have made a mistake. The most common mistakes are you have too many opportunity cards in your hand, based on the hand limit determined by the number of phases of your secret plan that you have accomplished, or you have either announced that you are making more money than you actually are during the collect stage, or you actually take more money than you should be taking during the collect phase. Should the accuser be able to prove that you have made a mistake, then you will have to pay them $2 billion, and should they be unable to prove that you have made a mistake, then they will have to pay you $2 billion in order to make things right. The next stage is the invest stage, and this is where the bulk of your turn is going to take place. This is when you're going to be spending all of your liquidity or the money that you made during your collect stage, and you'll be using that money to lay phases, as I mentioned at the beginning of the game, which is your endgame winning condition, or you'll be playing the various opportunity cards that you have to either build up your own business empire or perhaps mess with your opponent's business empires instead. For the purposes of this example, we are going to pretend that we are playing the cyan player over here. And you'll notice in this setup, you'll notice that there are no phases set out around the board at the moment. Now, based on the setup of cities I have out here, that would not be the case. However, I've cleared them all away simply so I can illustrate how phases work in order to make this a little more clear. So first we're going to start with laying phases. And as a reminder, you will need to lay down all 3 phases of your individual plan. We'll see right here, we have 3 phases for the cyan player. We'll zoom in on those in just a moment. And in order to win, first, the cyan player will need to have laid out all 3 of these phases. And as they lay out the phases, that would allow them to slowly build up their secret lair. Here, it is fully capped off. And once that is done, then they're able to try to accomplish their end game win condition, but I'll talk a little bit about that later on. Let's talk about how you get these phases out. On your turn, you're able to play all the opportunity cards that you are able to afford. So when playing a phase card, a player will play the card and pay the associated cost as written on the top right of the card. Once that is done, then they will be able to place one of their businesses in the city that is listed on the card, in this case, Santiago. And that will mean that they have accomplished phase 1 of their secret plan. And as a reminder, when that is accomplished, they would add to their secret lair on the board the next stage of their secret lair, like so. However, it is also very important to note that any player can play a phase of any color that they want. So for example, our cyan player could play one of their own phases like that, or perhaps they would like to spend $3 billion to put a business in London. Now this is not going to help them get to their end game, but it will give them another business out on the board. So you'll see here, had cyan played all 3 of these, they would have gotten one step closer to their end game by playing the Santiago card here. they would have gotten a business in London and a business in Berlin. Now, these two cards here could be taken over by a player of the same color. So in the game that we have set up, only the red might be taken over by the red player, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. I also need to point out that you can only have one of each phase out on the board. So later on, if Cyan played another phase one, then I would have to choose one of them to take off of the board. It is also important to note that no matter how one of these cards is removed from your player area, you do not lose the business in the city. Once you've placed it on the board, it will stay no matter what happens to the cards in front of you. It's also important to note that down on the bottom of these cards, it says or, and then there is something else that you can play down there. These are nasty business cards, which you're able to play for the effect written on the card there. Now, I mentioned that it is possible to do a hostile takeover, and that is fairly simple. It is when another player sees in front of an opponent a phase that they would like to take over of their color. Now, the way that the hostile takeover works is, as I said, when another player has a phase out in front of them in your color. As I said earlier, we are pretending that this is the Cyan player's play area. And again, I've pulled this off of the board just for easier illustration right now. On the red player's turn, they want to take a phase one because they don't have one. Or perhaps they just want to be able to get something in London. There are two things that they are able to do on their turn. They can do a hostile takeover by simply paying $3 billion and taking this card for themselves into their hand. Note I said into their hand, which means for them to play it later, they would then have to pay another $3 billion to get it out. Or the other thing that they're able to do is they can play an agent card. And you'll see down at the bottom it says perform a hostile takeover for free. And what that means is they would take the card, again, to their hand, and they could then play it later for $3 billion. And while we're talking about these agent cards, you'll notice that there are two other options that you can use these for as well. One, you have the attack or defend in the endgame, and we'll talk about that when we discuss the endgame later on in this video. You can also raid the wasted opportunities pile. What that means is you can play this card and go through all of the discarded opportunities and take one to your hand, always keeping in mind that you have to be cognizant of what your hand limit is. Now, let's take a look at how a player's turn might play out. You'll see that I've placed out a single phase that is an off color for Cyan, and you'll notice that they have no additional parts of their secret lair added, while red has built one of their phases and has one level added on to their secret lair, while blue over here has nothing and actually will not be taking part in this example. I will also note that I've cleared away all of the phases around the board just to keep this example simple and clear, even though with the number of cities that have businesses out there certainly would be more. So we will start with the Cyan player. They have 3 cards in their hand at the moment because that is their hand limit. First, they're going to pay $3 billion in order to play the Santiago Phase 1. Now you will notice that this is one of Cyan's phases, and you can only ever have a single of each phase out in front of you. So that means that this Berlin card will get discarded to the wasted opportunities pile. Then Santiago comes out, and we place a cube in Santiago over in South America. Along with that, we have the first new piece of Cyan's secret lair. You will also note that I did not remove the business from Berlin here when this card was discarded. Then to continue on, Cyan will spend $5 billion to place out Dubai, which is a Phase 2 card. Now you'll note that I played a Phase 2. You cannot play any Phase 2 cards until you have a Phase 1 already out there. In this case, Cyan gets to add a business into Dubai. Next, they're not particularly excited about the cards they have in their hand, so they're going to spend $3 billion to create a new opportunity for themselves, and they will draw a single opportunity card into their hand. And just for kicks, they'll spend $3 billion more to draw another one. And then we will assume that, in this case, Cyan decides that they are finished and they would move into the next stage, which is the world event stage. Now, I will talk about how that works later on. This example here is only illustrating how the invest phase works. Now, before I move on into explaining the world event phase, Red could attempt a hostile takeover of this business here in Dubai. And there are 2 ways that they can do that, as I pointed out. They can either pay $5 billion and simply take the card into their hand, and then on their turn, they would be able to play it, assuming they could afford it, which would give them another part of their secret lair, or they could play one of the aforementioned agent cards to do a hostile takeover for free, though this card would still go into their hand, not directly out onto the board. There are some cards that can counter a nasty business card. However, this does not apply to an agent card, as it is not technically a nasty business card. The final stage of a turn is the world event stage, and this is perhaps the fastest and most simple of all the stages. What will happen is, the current player will draw a world event card, like so. Then, they will roll the world event die, which will tell them which market the event goes into. In this case, corporations are people too, friend. Corporate state. Then any player with a business or a secret lair in that market would receive double income on the next turn. And you'll note, you simply take the card and slide it under the card shoe in the middle. Once in place, a world event card will remain there until either replaced by another card or a player plays some kind of card that will remove it. It's also important to note that there are a variety of opportunity cards that will allow you to re-roll the world die should the world event land in a market that you are not happy with. Play will continue like this until one or more players have completed their secret lairs by claiming all 3 of their phases. It is important to note that if you have completed all 3 of your phases, you are immune to bankruptcy. Now, bankruptcy is something I have not mentioned before. If at any time you're forced to pay money and you don't have enough liquid cash on hand, you will immediately go into bankruptcy, at which time you'll take one of these bankruptcy tokens and you'll place it next to your starting market. What this means is when it comes to your next turn, you will be unable to collect any money at the beginning of your turn, and then you will simply flip it over to a rebranding. There is, however, a benefit to going through bankruptcy and rebranding. It means you are immune to any attacks by other players that may affect your income. Then, when your turn comes back around again, you remove the rebranding token and you're able to collect money and play as usual. When a player has achieved all 3 of their phases, they are now eligible to enter the end game, or the culmination of your evil plan, at which time you can pay $9 billion and then flip over your evil plan for all to see. Make sure you read out nice and loud your quote explaining your evil plan, and then if no one is able to stop you in this moment, you have gloriously won and saved the world to crumble and suffer under your iron fist. The way another player will stop you is, very simply, they will play these agent attack cards. And should you not have enough cards to defend in the endgame, then you must sheepishly apologize to everybody around the table for your attempted evilness, flip your card back over, and continue on as if it never, ever happened. And the first player to accomplish their evil plan will be crowned the winner and ruler of the world. May they live forever, and let us all bow down to their evil, amazing glory. So there you have it, folks. That is quickly how you play Evil Corp. I hope you found this useful and that you feel confident that you can now jump into a game and get started right away. As always, if you have any questions, please leave those down in the comments, and I will respond as quickly as I can. Additionally, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.